Okay, so we're going to do 15.14. So it's giving you three cases, and in each of the cases we are given marginal cost and marginal revenue. Okay, so the first case we are given the marginal cost equal to 2 plus 0.2q, and marginal revenue is equal to 4. Okay. So part A, asking you to find the output for which marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Okay, so if we equate the marginal revenue and the marginal cost, then we get 4 equal to 2 plus 0.2q, and so therefore 2 is equal to 0.2q, and so therefore q is equal to 10. Okay, and outside this is the q star. So part B, asking you to find the total revenue, average revenue, total cost, profit, and the consumer surplus. So we know that total revenue is just going to be the differential of the marginal revenue function. Over the interval from 0 to q, okay, where q is just basically the firm's output. So if we take the integral of marginal revenue, which is 4, okay, dq, where q is going from 0 to q, okay, so now if we integrate this, we get 4q, and if we evaluate from q to q0, then we are going to get okay, so if we substitute q into here, we get 4q and minus 4 times 0, so that is going to give me 4q. Okay, so that's my total revenue. So from there I should be able to find the average revenue, which is equal to total revenue, everything divided by the total quantity. Okay, so I got 4q divided by q, and so that is going to give me 4. Alright, total cost, very similar. It's going to be the integral of the marginal cost. Okay, evaluated in the interval from 0 to q. So that is just going to be the integral of 2 plus 0.2q dq, and q is going from 0 to q. Okay, so if I integrate this, I'll get 2q plus 0.2q squared divided by 2, okay, plus a constant. Sorry, so this should be having a constant as well, so that becomes 4q plus c. Okay, and everything evaluated from interval from 0 to q. Okay, so that is just going to be 4q plus c minus 4 times 0 plus c. Okay, and so that will just give me 4q. Alright, so again, this is going to be evaluated from 0 to q. Okay, so that is, so if I substitute q into here, into the q, okay, remember this is just the value and this is the variable. Okay, so if I sub this value q into the variable q over here, I get 2q plus 0.2 times divided by 2 is 0.1q squared, okay, plus c, and minus, so if I sub 0 into here, I get 0 plus 0 plus c. Okay, so that would just give me 2q plus 0.1q squared. Okay, now the profit for the firm would just be equal to the total revenue minus total cost. Okay, and we found earlier that total revenue is just the area below or under the marginal revenue. and the total cost is just going to be the area below the marginal cost. Okay, so therefore it's just the integral from 0 to q of the marginal revenue, okay, and minus just the integral of from 0 to q of the marginal cost. Okay, just like what we found earlier. So if you using the integral rule, where the minus the difference between two integrals is going to be equal to the integral of the difference. Okay, so it's going to be the difference between marginal revenue and marginal cost curve. Okay, and if you take the integral of this, that is going to give you the profit for the firm. Okay, so in this case, alright, so in this case we already got total revenue and total cost that we found earlier, so it should be straightforward. Or if you want, you can use the marginal revenue, which is equal to 4 minus the marginal cost, which is equal to 2 plus 0.2q, and we take the integral of this. Okay, so that is just going to be 4 minus 2 is 2 minus 0.2q and dq, so integral from 0 to q. Okay, so if we integrate this, we're going to get 2q minus 2.1q squared and evaluate it at 0 and q. Okay, so that is going to just give us 2q minus 0.1 q squared. Okay, and so as you can see, if you take the total revenue, which is 4q, you minus the total cost, which is 2q plus 0.1q squared, then you are going to get 2q minus 0.1q squared, which is exactly this. Alright, and the last thing is consumer surplus. Now, so the consumer surplus is going to be, so we know that it's going to be the difference between the maximum willingness to pay from the consumers and the price that they will have actually pay for the outputs that they are buying from the firm. So it's going to be the area, so the difference between the area under the demand curve or the average revenue curve and the total amount, the total revenue that they would have to pay, which is basically the price multiplied by the quantity. Okay. Alright, so it's going to be the difference between the maximum willingness to pay. Now remember, the maximum willingness to pay is basically the area under the demand curve, and we know that the demand curve is just the average revenue curve. Okay, so therefore it's going to be the total, so it's going to be the average revenue multiplied by the total amount quantity Q, and it's going to minus the total amount that they would have to pay, which is the total revenue to the firm. Okay, basically so I would say consumer surplus is the area below demand curve or the average revenue curve. Okay, so basically a demand curve or the average revenue curve is exactly the same thing, minus the total amount they would have to pay, which is equal to the price of the product, and multiplied by the total quantity, which is Q. Okay, so this is just, as you can see, this is just the total revenue to the firm. Okay, so right, so the area below the demand curve or the average revenue curve is going to be just the integral of the average revenue okay, evaluated from in the interval from 0 to Q, and the total revenue. Okay, so this is just the total revenue to the firm, so that is just going to be the area below the marginal revenue, okay, which is the total revenue we found earlier. Okay, so marginal revenue QGQ from 0 to Q. Okay, so again, this is just the integral of the difference between average revenue and marginal revenue. Okay, so if we are substituting the value of the average revenue curve, which is we found earlier, which is equal to 4, and the marginal revenue also equal to 4, so that it's just going to be equal to 0. Okay, so so if we integrate a 0, it's just going to be equal to 0. Okay. Alright, so consumer surplus in this case is equal to 0. So the consumer is basically paying all their willingness to pay, and therefore they are left with no surplus, which is a very conventional result from the monopoly. So basically, in a monopoly, the firm will have the monopoly power, or the market power that is going to reduce the consumer surplus from the consumer. Okay, so in this special case, consumer has no consumer surplus. Okay, so Passy asking you to draw the marginal and average revenue curves and the marginal cost curve, indicating the total cost of the profit maximizing output, the firm's profit, and the consumer surplus. Okay, so what we have got is, so say this is the cost, just the dollars, which is the cost and the revenue, and this is the total quantity Q. Okay, and this is 0. So we want to draw the average revenue and the marginal revenue curve, which is just equal to 4. Okay, right, so I would just say it's somewhere over here. Right, so this is 4, and this is just the marginal revenue, and equal to the average revenue, equal to 4. Okay, and the marginal cost is just going to be 2 plus 0.2Q. Okay, so we know that it is just going to be a straight line with the vertical intercept of 2 and the slope of 0.2. So it's just going to be something like this. Okay, so this is my marginal cost curve. Right, so the intersection between marginal revenue and marginal cost is going to give me the profit maximizing level of output. Okay, and this is just over here where the quantity star equal to 10. Alright, so it's asking you to indicate the total cost of the profit maximizing output. So the total cost is basically the area below the marginal cost, okay, up to the quantity Q star equal to 10, which is the profit maximizing level of output. So it's basically the area below the marginal cost, starting from 0 to Q star equal to 10. So it's going to be this area over here. Okay, so that's the total cost for the firm. Okay, so total cost of Q star, which is total cost of 10, and the firm's profit and the consumer surplus. Okay, so we know that the firm's profit is going to be the difference, the area between the difference between the area under the marginal revenue and under the marginal cost. Okay, Okay, so as you can see over here, from quantity 0 to quantity 10, the marginal revenue is up here with a horizontal, and the marginal cost is here. So the difference between marginal revenue and marginal cost, from 0 up to Q equal to 10, is going to be the profit for the firm. So in this case, this is going to be just a triangle over here, which is the area between. Okay, so the difference between the marginal revenue and the marginal cost curve. Okay, so that's the area below the marginal revenue and above the marginal cost up to the quantity produced by the firm. Okay. Alright, so this is the profit for the firm at Q star. Alright, and lastly is the consumer surplus, which is the difference between the average revenue and the marginal revenue. And as you can see, because they are the same line over here, so therefore the consumer surplus is going to be equal to 0. Okay. Okay, now marginal cost is given by 2 plus 0.3Q. So as you can see, this is just a straight line with a slope of 0.3, so it's upward sloping. Okay, so vertical intercept is where Q equal to 0, and so marginal cost is going to be equal to 2, and so I have a vertical intercept over here, and if I draw an upward sloping line, so this is going to be my marginal cost curve. Alright, so indicate on the diagram the total cost of profit maximizing output, the firm's profit, and the consumer surplus. Okay, so the firm will be producing at the point where marginal revenue equal to marginal cost in order to maximize the firm's profit. So this is going to be the quantity Q star equal to 5. Okay. Alright, so the total cost is going to be the area under the marginal cost curve and up to the quantity produced by the firm, which is Q star equal to 5. So that is going to be the area under the marginal cost from Q0 up until Q equal to 5. Okay, so the area highlighted in yellow over here is going to be the total cost for the firm at the profit maximizing level of output. Okay, now again the firm's profit is going to be the difference between the marginal revenue and the marginal cost up until the quantity produced by the firm. So therefore it is just going to be the area below the marginal revenue curve and above the marginal cost curve, going from quantity Q0 until Q equal to 5. Okay, so this is the maximum profit that the monopoly can get by producing at the profit maximizing level of output Q star. Okay. Alright, so this is the profit for the firm, and the consumer surplus. So we know that the consumer surplus is just the difference between the average revenue and the marginal revenue up to the quantity produced by the firm. Okay, so if you are moving Q equal to 5 up all the way until the average revenue, which is here, then the difference between, so the area below the average revenue above the marginal revenue up to this quantity is going to be the consumer surplus. Okay, so as you can see, it's going to be this green highlighted area. Okay, so this is the area below the average revenue, above the marginal revenue, and up until the quantity Q equal to 5. Okay, so so this area over here is the consumer surplus, right? Okay, so the last part asking you to indicate the welfare loss from the monopoly. Okay, so we got part D is to try to find the welfare loss. Okay, so like I said before, the welfare loss is just going to be the difference between the welfare in the socially optimal solution and the welfare in the monopoly. Okay, and the welfare loss is happening because the monopoly firm is normally producing less than the socially optimal level of output. Okay, so therefore it's going to be the difference between welfare, I would say W 0, okay, which is the welfare in the socially optimal economy, and minus the total welfare in the monopoly, so I would say this W star. Now, so the welfare is basically including the consumer surplus and the producer's profit or the monopoly's profit. Okay, so W 0, which is the welfare in the socially economy, is going to be equal to consumer surplus in the socially competitive, socially optimal level of output, and plus the profit for all of the firms. Okay, which is which is the firm's profit. Now, like I said before, socially optimal level of output is going to be the point where the marginal revenue, where the average revenue or the price is going to be equal to the marginal cost. So the intersection between the average revenue and the marginal cost curve is going to be the socially optimal level of output. Okay, so in this case I'll call this is Q0, which is the socially optimal level of output. Okay, so this is socially optimal point. Okay, so again, the consumer surplus is just going to be the integral between the average revenue and marginal revenue, just like before. Okay, times dq, where the quantity is in the interval from 0 to q0. Okay, and firm's profit again, it's just going to be the integral of marginal revenue minus marginal cost. Okay, so the difference between marginal revenue and marginal cost under the integral in the interval from 0 to q to q0. Okay, so this is the total welfare under the socially optimal level. So if we simplify this now, using the integral rule, we got 0 to q0, average revenue minus marginal revenue plus marginal revenue minus marginal cost, and everything dq. Okay, so that is just going to give me 0 to q0. Now marginal revenue will cancel out, and what I'm left with is just average revenue minus marginal cost dq. Alright, so this is the formula to calculate the welfare in an economy. So very similar welfare in a monopoly market is going to be a consumer surplus in monopoly market plus the profit for the monopoly firm. So that is just going to be the integral from 0 to q star, which is the quantity produced by the firm, by the monopoly, and average revenue minus marginal cost dq. Okay, so therefore the welfare loss is going to be the difference between socially optimal level of welfare and a monopoly welfare. Okay, so it's going to be 0 q0 AR minus MC dq minus 0 q star AR minus MC dq. Now, one of the definite integral rule is that if you got the integral of okay, A and C of fx dx, okay, plus the integral of C and B of fx dx, so the same function, then that is going to be equal to the integral of B and C. So the B and A, so the middle value C over here will disappear, and if you add these two together, you get the interval from B to A of the function fx dx. Okay, so we are going to apply that rule over here, where we got 0 to q0. Okay, AR minus MC dq, and this one, now if we want to change the interval, the limit, so the upper level and the lower limit, we want to swap it, then this will just become plus. Okay, so that is q star to 0 of AR minus MC dq. Okay, alright, so this is the first rule. The second rule is if you got A and B of fx dx, and it is just equal to negative of B and A. Okay, so if you want to swap the limit, it just got to be a negative sign in front of it. Alright, so that's what we did over here. And now applying the sum rule over here, then the number 0 will disappear, and what we got left is from q star to q0 of AR minus MC dq. So that is just the difference between the average revenue and the marginal cost curve for an interval from q star to q0. Okay, so on the diagram, it's going to be the section under the average revenue curve above the marginal cost curve, and between the quantity q star and the quantity q0, which is just the intersection between the marginal cost and the average revenue. Okay, now like I mentioned before, the socially optimal level of output is just the intersection between the average revenue and the marginal cost curve. So this is the quantity q0 over here. Okay, this is the socially optimal level of output. Alright, so the welfare loss is just going to be the area below the average revenue above the marginal cost, and between the quantity q star and q0. So that is just going to be a little triangle over here. Okay, so this is the welfare loss. Okay, so in order to find the value of this area, it's basically just the triangle, so it's going to just be half of the height times the base. Okay, where or you can just use the formula over here, where I got q I got q star already. The thing I have to do is to find q0. Okay, so q0 is going to be the intersection between the average revenue and marginal cost curve. Okay, now average revenue I found earlier is 8 minus 0.45q, and marginal cost is 2 plus 0.3q. So therefore it's going to give me 6 equal to 0.75q, and so therefore q is going to be equal to 8. Alright, so q0 over here is 8. And so therefore the welfare loss is just going to be the integral between q star, which is 5, and q0, which is 8. Average revenue is 8 minus 0.45q, and marginal cost is just 2 minus 0.3q. Okay, and dq. So that is 5 and 8. Now 8 minus 2 is 6, minus 0.75q, and dq. So if I integrate this, will just give me 6q minus 0.375 q squared, and evaluate it at an interval 5 to 8. So that is just 6 times 8 minus 0.375 q square, which is 8 square, okay, minus 6 times 5 minus 0.375 times 5 square. Okay, so if you use a calculator, that will just give you 64. So that's 24 for the first, and minus, so that's 30 minus 0.375 times 25, that is 20.625. Okay, so 24 minus that is 3.375, and that is the amount of welfare loss from the monopoly.